Welcome back to another great episode of Geek Centurions. It's me, your boy Eli, with
Me, Joe. How's it going? Another week.
Another week. I mean, everyone's working or school, and you and I are the only ones that are, got nothing to do during the week.
Not for lack of trying, mind you.
No, like I'm trying,
This might date this a little bit, but as of recording, this is the day after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So, obviously, things, this probably will come out after Thanksgiving, but, I guess, to everybody who listens to us, a happy post-Thanksgiving, I guess.
Yep.
As we, move on to the next big holiday season,
And we'll see whether or not we'll do it. I don't think we're going to do anything in those coming weeks. I'll tell you that right now.
In terms of, like, a special themed month, no?
No.
No, alright, all right.
We'll probably just finish up the Mandalorian reviews and then...
Alright, yeah, alright. That seems fine.
Yeah. Anyways, just nice little cleanup. So something me and Joy like to do once every while during Thanksgiving is watch some movies. We're big movie buffs. And one of the most recent movies, but basically because I just got not too long ago I got the collection, is the Godzilla movies. And me and Joy, man, we're brothers, and we also grew up watching the same stuff, and we were big Godzilla fans.
I think a lot of people who were born in the 90s were really big into Godzilla, especially since I think that was sort of like a resurgence because of all the Heisei era films showing up on cable TV, on like all those various things, from like Godzilla 1984 all the way to like versus the Destroyer or whatever. Yeah, like
It's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, like all those, I think people who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, like those were like legit and pretty good. And then you get the Millennium series that came later on, and you have the Showa era, like
the Showa era came first, then it was the Haitian, and then it was the Millennium era, and then we have a kind of bit of resurgence more from the West.
Yeah,
you can tell we're Godzilla fans.
Yeah. Obviously, like, Godzilla's I guess he's always been sort of mainstream. He's like the only like big Japanese movie monster like most regular people would like have at least heard of. Like, I don't think if he were to take a microphone out into the streets and say, "You guys know who Gamera is?" or various other things. Have you guys seen the War of Gargantuans? No? Okay.
You seen Son of Kong?
Wasn't that like... Is that a sequel to the King Kong? I mean...
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, no, I'm just... as a hypothetical person would say. Yeah.
Did you see the Japanese version of King Kong with the Robot Kong?
Yeah, you fight some Mecha Kong. Yeah. Kaiju movies,
they're fun.
Yeah, they're dumb and they're fun. And I think you were mentioning earlier, as there's a resurgence in the West thanks to like the Legendary Pictures version of Godzilla, along with the sequel King of the Monsters.
Yeah, and if you already read the title, the one we're talking about right now is the OG original 1954 film Godzilla or Gojira. For those of you that know the original film, so we will be talking about that. And just let us get our little nerdy kaiju love out first.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of fun to watch those movies. And I think I'm pretty sure if current world circumstances weren't as they are now, we would have probably maybe have seen Godzilla versus King Kong, because that was supposed to come out this year.
And my inner child is going to go crazy.
Yeah, it'd be kind of neat to see, like, I guess a rematch, because considering that was they did fight once before in the 60s.
And that was our first Godzilla film.
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah,
our first Godzilla film was Godzilla vs. King Kong, and I think we both wanted Godzilla to win.
Yeah, because he's a giant lizard that spews atomic fire out of his mouth. What's not like love?
Like, how is that not cool?
Yeah.
But then again, like, Kong was shoving a fucking tree down Godzilla's throat.
Yeah, it's all kinds of.
Listen, it was like real WWF that time. It was amazing.
Yeah. So yeah,
Just
like,
add Jim Ross on there, and it would be amazing.
okay. Yeah, no. So we're
Good
gonna.
God Almighty! He's shoving that tree down Godzilla's throat. Oh my God! Good God Almighty! He's so tempted to do the voice now.
No. All right. Let's get back to no. But yeah. Today we're gonna be discussing the original 1954 Godzilla.
Because there's some good amount of stuff to talk about. Because one, it's basically one of the it's one of the original kaiju films, and it's probably the one that has the most impact in not only, I wouldn't say just only in Japanese pop culture, but also like just pop culture in general, and like the meaning behind a lot of the stuff that goes into that film. Well, so this is basically gonna be kind of like a review / discussion about that movie. Because well, I mean, for one, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's really good, and plus there's like 2 versions, as I mentioned earlier, Gojira and Godzilla King of the Monsters, where King of the Monsters was more of like, let's just splice in this American actor to react to all the events that are going on, as he was part of the film. And who was that actor again?
I don't know the name of the actor.
He's a well-known. He played Perry Mason in like in really old movies.
Yeah.
Show. I mean,
I know that the character name was Steve Martin, and when Godzilla 1984 aired and was shown in America, they actually included him again, but referred to him as just Mr. Martin because
Steve Martin was big at the time.
Yeah, the actor Steve Martin was big at the time, so to avoid any weird confusion, yeah. I don't remember his name.
Raymond Burr.
Yeah, that's what it is, Raymond Burr.
He played Perry Mason on Ironside, which was a TV show.
Okay. But, the American version, I think a lot of people sort of agree is kind of the inferior version, just from the sheer fact that there's a lot of...
It's heavily edited.
Yeah, because at the time, 1954, to give context, a lot of the stuff that sort of goes into what makes Godzilla is, based on the atomic bomb. And this was I'm pretty sure 9 years after
the bombing of Nagasaki.
When the U.S. dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure most Americans would find it very. I think at the time, a lot of to avoid any sort of weird anti-nuclear sentiments, because this movie does have that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it was meant to be a political commentary.
Yeah, it was meant to sort of talk about the dangers of nuclear power and the hydrogen bomb and all that stuff. And
we'll get into more of that as we talk about our review. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. This is a very good, interesting point to start off with. This is just to see Godzilla's view from both the West and the East. For the Western audience, he's big, cool, giant breathing monster who destroys and smash everything that is from Japan, while the Japanese see him more as sort of a social commentary, the horror that they had to go through. And you can tell that from the original version of the film, and like I said, we'll get to that, because there's a specific scene that, I want to say was cut. It's been a while since, because I have the original one, so it's the original Gojira, so it's not the one with Raymond Burr. And I don't recall if the Raymond Burr had a specific scene that really felt kind of haunting. And I think you know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where it made you feel oh shit, this is this feels like a war film kind of thing. So, it's very heavily edited and stuff like that. Not saying that not saying that the one Raymond Burr is bad. I still enjoyed that one. It's probably the first one of the 2 I've seen. And I still enjoyed it.
I mean, yeah. It's just that I think for a lot of people, especially those who I guess want to I don't know. I think for a lot of people, they don't like because they feel like a lot of those changes were more or less unnecessary. Especially considering, I think, a lot of other. I think it's like one of the few Godzilla movies where they did a whole lot of that editing stuff and cutting stuff and adding, specifically splicing in American actors and stuff. Because most of them don't really do that. They just sort of they either just subtitle the movies or just have like dub actors to dub over lines and stuff.
God damn it, those dub acting is hilarious.
Yeah, because it's very hard for them to like do good lip syncs.
Yeah. And so let's say we get started in our thoughts on this film. We'll go with the first one, Gojira. Joey, what are your thoughts on the film as a quick review, really?
Well, obviously the movie starts out. I think it starts out it's
in the middle of the ocean.
Middle of the ocean, some fishermen just doing stuff. There's a flash of light, and the boat comes back, and like everybody's dead. And it's sort of just like it sort of builds up the mystery of what the hell's happening, right? It's just a bunch of reports of like various strange things going on, like large amounts of radioactive activity on some islands off the coast of Japan, and then scientists go and investigate, and they eventually come upon Godzilla, and it obviously freaks them out. They realize that he's sort of a monster that was awakened, I think, due to nuclear testing in the Pacific Ocean. And now he's starting to rampage all over Japan. You have characters trying to figure out what are we going to do? How are we going to stop him? Right? And eventually it comes to one of the characters, I believe Dr. Surisawa is his name. He essentially is a scientist who develops a weapon that basically is able to kill Godzilla, the oxygen destroyer. We're basically just
it's another atom bomb kind of thing.
Yeah, it's on the level of another like weapon of mass destruction where it just dissolves things till they're bone or whatever. And sort of the movie ends after Godzilla just destroys Tokyo. They manage to like find him like in the bottom of the ocean. Dr. Surisawa goes down and activates the oxygen destroyer, but to kill Godzilla and himself, because he's sort of just like he knows that just like the atom bomb, the oxygen destroyer could be used against people. And since he's the only one that knows how to make it, he dies with the secret, so that way no one can make a weapon as.
And that's where the whole commentary on like nuclear warfare is so prevalent, because you have this weapon of mass destruction going up against essentially something that was made by another weapon of mass destruction. It's sort of like what begot sort of ignorance, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely like that is definitely one of the biggest messages from the movie, is sort of just like listen, we have to be responsible for the things we create, because these things, especially with the atomic bomb, because it is like it's a dangerous weapon. It could wipe out all of humanity. And we need to be careful with these things, right? And it makes a lot of sense, especially considering like I said earlier, this was 9 years after the atomic bombings that Japan faced, and Japan, it really at the time was the only country to have ever experienced like
that level of
destruction from nuclear weapons. So it sort of comes off as sort of having to like as a way to cope with having to go through that experience. Because there are quite a lot of scenes in when Godzilla is destroying Tokyo that's kind of meant to evoke scenes of destruction at those nuclear where those bombs were dropped, right? it's meant to like sort of do that parallel.
Yeah. It's. I mean, that's one of the things that I have to double check, and like I was looking at my phone to double check on the story of, you know, the American version of Godzilla, the King of the Monsters, and see sort of the difference that they've installed. And one of the key ones I noticed was the ending. And I'll get to that when we start comparing the two. That essentially, no, I'm 100%. I'm with you on this. On your thoughts on this film. It really stands out because when you see Godzilla, whether it be sort of the recent ones with Legendary, some of the ones from Japan, the old ones from whatever era, you tend to see them as silly. Like it's a guy in a rubber suit. It's a guy, you know, doing some really fun, quirky, campy stuff. I mean, that's how we grew up with it. One of our favorite characters was Jet Jaguar, and
it's just a giant robot.
It's just a giant robot with a freaky smile.
And it's like a regular sized human robot, and then it just grows big, like Godzilla size. It's yeah,
and like you're just like, this is silly. But then when you watch the original Godzilla film from Japan, you realize, oh, this isn't campy. I mean, yeah, it's still a guy in a rubber suit, but like, there's weight.
Yeah, it takes itself seriously. I mean, with and to that point, you mentioning like all the other Godzilla movies sort of doing a bit more campiness stuff. I mean, I think the last Godzilla movies to try to go for a bit more serious route, I think, was 1984 Godzilla.
You're forgetting about Shin Godzilla.
I was getting there. To be fair, is because mainly due to the plot point of it's just because a lot of those times when Godzilla does do goofy stuff, it's because he's fighting other monsters. In some of these movies, like Godzilla 1984, it's just himself, once again destroying Tokyo, and I believe there is some Cold War anxieties in that film as well.
But wasn't that movie also edited by Americans too?
Yeah, but not as heavily.
Yeah,
not as heavily. So, yeah. I know the 2014 Legendary Godzilla definitely also kind of leaned towards a bit more of the seriousness vibes. I mean, yes, it has him fighting other monsters, but
the thing about the Legendary one is that it feels like more like it's sort of the Earth responding back. Because Godzilla's always in the past, and this one and the one from was it 2018 or the King of the Monsters movie?
Yeah, that was that last year?
Was it last year? I'm gonna double check.
I'm pretty sure it was last year.
Yeah, last year it was. But no, like those seem to have more of a sort of a force of nature kind of thing. Like whenever they arrive, everything goes to hell.
I mean, yeah, but that's still sort of, I guess, the idea of it. Like, like Godzilla is meant to sort of evoke like a force of nature. Like he's a sort of a natural disaster. You can't really do anything to stop him, right? You can only just let things happen. And to your point, what you said earlier, you mentioned it. Shin Godzilla, or Godzilla Resurgence, I think it's called in the Americas. Yeah. Is also very sort of like I think it's like probably the closest to the original, just because it's an allegory to what happened back in, I want to say 2012, 2013, the Fukushima.
Yeah, like a lot of nuclear.
It was a nuclear plant that melted down and nearly nearly caused a lot of bad stuff to happen over there in Japan because of a tsunami, I believe it was caused by. So, and that movie sort of like it was sort of a critique of the government's response to that, and and again, sort of invoking sort of like the dangers of nuclear.
Directed by the guy who made Evangelion, which makes more sense.
Yeah, and if you go watch that movie, there's actually, at least when you see Godzilla in action, there are like subtle hints to Ava, I feel.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah,
Evangelion, good lord.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's Yeah, but it's like the original still has that sort of I guess edge of sort of like this is what people who have gone through nuclear war, like that's how they sort of view it as a giant as sort of I guess as an allegory, like Godzilla, serves as an allegory, right, of just sort of the horrors of the bomb, right, and what it can do, and how we need to, how people need to.
It's like you said earlier, take responsibility.
Yeah, take responsibility and make sure that.
Which, before we go into that sort of discussion about the edited version, obviously, what would you give this? I mean, I'm just gonna flat out say this is like a goddamn perfect movie for me. Like for me, it's like at least a 9 or a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I would probably say it's a 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
I would lean.
I mean, we could talk more about it, but it's like, what is there to talk about?
Yeah, it's. I think a lot of what has been said of the original Godzilla, it's been said. I mean, the fact that it's part of the Criterion movie collection, which is sort of like a very, I guess, prestigious or
somehow.
Yeah, like it's a prestigious sort of movie like brand collection where it's a showcase of a lot of like well-known foreign films and stuff like that. Yeah, the fact that like it's sort of featured there, she kind of just goes to show that it's not just a
goofy monster film.
Yeah, like a giant, like just it's not just a guy in a rubber suit destroying Tokyo. It's you realize that this movie is meant to be very serious, and there's a lot of scenes that sort of give you that gravity of like, oh, oh, this is, like you're meant to sort of understand like what Japan at the time went through.
Which, I mean, now we're gonna go talk about the heavily edited version, Godzilla King of the Monsters, with Aaron Byrne. Which, again, I don't hate the movie. I think it's still a pretty decent movie, but wow, there's like a huge tone shift.
Yeah. I think it's this one is the American version of Godzilla, 1954, is very sort of. I guess the word would be sanitized.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're talking about that film, you mentioned it earlier that hey, the Japanese version starts off with an explosion going off, people are dead. In that one, it's more of they start off with the aftermath of the attack on the city.
Yeah, it's sort of kind of like
it's all in flashbacks.
Yeah, it's Rimber, who's like I think a reporter, right?
He's a reporter.
He just comes to like just see what's going on because he's sort of like just investigating some things, and he sort of is more or less a tag along character to all the other characters.
Yeah,
because again, like you said, he was added into the film, so they essentially shot around. Like they edited the footage that it made it seem as though he was a part of the movie, even though like he wasn't.
Yeah, it'd be like he's talking to because in the beginning of the scene he's talking to one of the female characters from the original movie, but they're not. They were never together. It's more like your camera's on me. I'm speaking, and now the camera spans to Joey, who was added to this episode, and he's talking, and we cut back to face.
And yeah, it's sort of,
and we just dub over those lines.
Yeah, and it's very sort of it is weird. Very weird that they would do that, but I'm gonna assume at the time American audiences probably were not very receptive to foreign films. So I'm assuming, especially with something that deals heavily with nuclear weapons and all that allegory stuff, probably would have been sort of not that well received. So they definitely I don't know what studio it was that distributed Godzilla to the U.S. or whatever. Might have been Universal.
I'm double checking just in case.
But yeah, I'm probably pretty sure just to make sell in the U.S., it was changed into like just a sort of a standard monster movie. Which,
Embassy Pictures.
Okay.
For the U.S. East Coast, I guess. I don't know. Transworld Releasing Corporation for U.S. West. I don't know.
All right. Well, that's what we get. That's what you get for looking at Wikipedia. But yeah, no, it's there's also a lot of like I think cut scenes as well, right?
Yeah, no, that's one of the big ones because like, so the part the one I'm thinking about, and I'm pretty sure it's the one you thought about too, was in the original film, Godzilla shows up, he's attacking, he's destroying everything, he's burning everything, invoking a lot of nuclear, destruction. And it's the aftermath. Everyone's in the hospital, or like it's basically imagine like like an after wars thing, where everyone's in like this one place, and like there's bodies everywhere. People are wrapped up in bandages. They're like laying on the walls, and there's a specific scene where I don't remember if this was edited out, but it's one of the ones I always remember, and I can't seem to remember if this is in the American version. It was the choir of Japanese schoolgirls,
right?
Where they're kind of singing to the dead. It's like it's a choir, so they're singing to the people that died, and it's very sort of I don't want to use the word heavy, but it's very somber. Yeah, it's like holy shit. People, it's like wow, people die. It's something you don't see like you again if you're used to watching a lot of like some of the old ones or new ones where like you see the destruction but you never see the aftermath. This is one of the ones where like holy shit, people die.
Yeah,
people die because of Godzilla.
Yeah,
he does not give a fuck.
Well, yeah, he's just a giant monster, just goes around destroying things.
Yeah.
Honestly, the scene I was thinking about was not that.
Really? Which one was it then?
It was, and I'm pretty sure they did cut this one out. It was as the destruction is happening. It's a mother holding her children.
Oh, yeah, now I remember, yeah.
Like, sort of like knowing that they're probably going to die and saying that, don't worry, we're going to be with Dad soon. She's comforting her children in their inevitable death.
Mm-hmm.
That, and I'm like 99% positive that was cut out of the film as well because of the American version, because obviously it's really heavy. Like, I mean, your example definitely is, like makes that point of sort of like, just the gravity of what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But that also is like I think a scene that definitely sticks out, especially because I'm pretty positive it was not in the original. So seeing that, it's sort of just like, oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So it's stuff like that like sort of got cut out of the American version.
Well, not just that, the whole attack on the city was. I feel like that's the scene where it was mostly edited. Because in that scene, Raymond Burton is just sitting there with his little microphone or whatever, just describing the horror. Kind of like Orson Welles, when he's reading the War of the Realms. Like, how you imagine like that voice talking about the destruction everywhere is terrible. I'm seeing children crying, mothers begging to be saved, and all that kind of stuff. That's exactly what he's doing. Well, yeah, it kind of gives you the sense of horror that's going on. But he's more or less describing, while in the original Japanese version it's more like, oh, we're seeing face to face what is going on. Like, I totally forgot that scene that you just mentioned, and that's a very like fucked up scene, because I think it's also meant like hinted that the dad was a World War II soldier.
Yeah, probably. I think that's sort of the thing with the American version. Like, I would agree with you. It's not like the worst thing ever. It's just that when you understand and see the original, it's sort of just like, well, like it's sort of just like, why go through all this effort to just change all the stuff that makes this movie so good? But then you, of course, got to remember it's definitely due to the fact that it is sort of a commentary on the
The bombings.
yeah, to the bombings that I'm pretty sure, like I said, 9 years after World War II has ended, Americans probably don't want to be lectured on the use of nuclear weapons, especially considering that they're the ones that made them. So rather than sort of have a movie that's sort of very poignant, they sort of just sort of took it and made it into a sort of a monster movie, which is not bad. It's just sort of very sort of it's an interesting, I guess, way to see how these two countries at the time sort of saw nuclear weaponry and like the effects it has on the world.
And like to go to your point, because I was saying earlier, I was looking up to make sure to see if there's any differences between the two films, and one struck me out, and it's the ending, where in the Americanized version, Raymond Burr's character is saying, thanks to was it Aizawa or Surisawa, that there we get to live again. He sacrificed himself for us. We're gonna be okay, kind of stuff. But in the Japanese version, it was more like, we need to take responsibility.
Yeah.
No, this shit could happen again.
Yeah.
Like with the Americans, there's this it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. But Japan, who have faced this horror, who have seen this sort of like level of destruction and misery, are like, we can't let this happen again. This is something that could destroy us. And I think that's where, really where the big divide is when it comes to these two films. Is there, and we've been mentioning it over and over again. It's literally the attention to the atom bomb, because we have two perspectives. It's coming from two perspectives: the person that shot it and the person that received it.
Yeah, and that's sort of I guess what makes the discussion between these both versions so kind of interesting. I mean, I definitely understand why people wouldn't just not really like the American version after discovering what the original is like. It's sort of just like, oh, this is sort of like a whitewashing of this film's sort of core ideals, right? But I mean, I still say that at least looking at the American version, it's still a solid, I think, film. It's just that because of all the editing and stuff, it's sort of
and it's mostly because of that allegory of nuclear destruction,
right?
Because how else would America react to this? They never, it's something that, whether they're proud of it or not, it's something that's really horrific. How else are you gonna how else is Japan gonna react and make stuff like this? And you can go back and you can see a lot of examples of after the war, their views on stuff, and the creation of a lot of media, a lot of pop culture that was based around the war.
Yeah.
And so it's inevitable that we end up gonna have to go there.
Yeah, it is sort of interesting how all that stuff sort of looks out. I think even now, I mean, I guess to be fair, when we talk about, I guess, the theming of the original Godzilla, and having it be such a huge success, the fact that the sequel sort of just goes and just becomes just a regular monster movie where Godzilla fights another giant monster, it is sort of interesting to see Japan's sort of relationship with Godzilla nowadays.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because he went from being sort of this allegory to, nuclear destruction, the dangers of the bomb, to being kind of sort of the savior of Japan, I guess.
Yeah, he's more of he's kind of sort of a when it sort of just seems like Godzilla, when he's on his own, is sort of seen as this sort of procedural threat. But when there is like external threats in movies, like giant space monsters or other monsters that show up that might destroy Japan,
aliens, if you're going from the original,
yeah, or Mecha Godzilla, King Ghidorah, all these other monsters that will probably destroy the Earth. It's sort of just incumbent for Godzilla to essentially become the protector of Japan and by extension the Earth, which is it's super interesting.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's super weird considering his origins as sort of like an allegory to the bomb. Now he's sort of like a kind of sort of good guy, but will still just destroy the city anyway.
And I think that's what the legendary movies are trying to invoke. That he is essentially this force of nature that has no allegiance to anyone. He will destroy and /save people. That's the whole commentary, especially in the second King of the Monsters film.
Yeah,
where he comes in and everything he destroys, he ends up there's life again. The trees are coming back. A lot of stuff is going on that normally would never happen. He comes in and cleans it up. He is like Mother Nature. He comes in.
Yeah.
And whether or not you feel like that's successful or not, it's sort of what he kind of inevitably becomes because and I think it's because later on in when it comes to the atomic age, you've noticed that Chernobyl, that thing screwed up a lot of things. But if you go there now, it's very lush with greens.
Yeah. That is sort of an interesting thing that there's just wildlife that is returned to Chernobyl because it's so radioactive, and it's not good. People can't live there until another 1,000 years, I think, even longer. So the fact that it's sort of just taken over by nature is interesting. But yeah, that's sort of I guess the weird evolution of Godzilla for a little bit. I don't know. What do you think about the American version? What would you rate it?
I mean, again, I don't hate it. I think the movie's fine. I still enjoyed it when I watched it. But when you compare it to say the original 1954 Japanese film, there is still lacking because the message is so profound. And like you said, the interesting idea that both America and Japan have different viewpoints about sort of the use of the atom bomb. That's probably why they made that kind of ending too, is because they saw it as a good thing.
Yeah, America, I think for an American audience, then the bomb is a necessary evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. That's sort of the argument a lot of people make when it comes to World War II and whether it was justified to use the nuclear weapons, drop those atom bombs on Japan at the time. Well, at least in retrospect,
yeah.
Because the justification would have been if the Americans would have gone with a conventional invasion of the island, there would have been way more casualties than what occurred with the two bombs. So, I mean, yeah, I think at the time a lot of Americans would have been it was necessary.
Yeah, and
it's a necessary evil.
And that's why we get the ending. The sacrifice was needed for everyone to be okay. While the Japanese, who were the one at the receiving end, they're we need to be accountable for this action that has caused more pain for us.
Yeah,
which I think in that sense, it's still a great. When you think of that, it's sort of both as commentaries for the bomb. It's still pretty interesting. That's why I'm not saying it's a horrible. It's not. We both said it's not a terrible movie.
No,
it's still a good movie. I think I would give it somewhere between an 8 and a 9. But I'll still probably go with the 8 just because because the edited version sort of takes away a little too much of the weight of how much horror there was when when Godzilla comes in, and sort of the effect that he leaves on. For a character like Raymond Burr's character who really doesn't do much, sadly.
Yeah,
he's just reactionary.
Yeah, he's just sort of there, just watching everything go down.
Yeah, hence why we're talking about him talking to the radio. But still, it's still effective because we can see sort of the idea that America has over when it comes to the bomb. So yeah, I would probably give it an 8. 9 if I really want to be generous.
I'd probably go with a 7.5.
Really? How so?
I mean, I think for me, like all the changes do bring it down for me like that. But again, I don't think it's like so like freaking like terrible or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think it's like I don't think it I wouldn't say like discards the themes of the original. It just sort of like I guess like the American version tries to recontextualize that stuff in a way that I think that might try to resonate with the American audiences at the time. But and I think that's sort of like half of my reasoning for it. It's sort of like it seems like it's a product of its time.
So you're saying that it feels very dated for
yeah
what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
See, now that makes more sense. Because I was like because I was thinking like 7.5 is a little harsh, Joey. But that mindset I totally understand now because like it seems very like its messages is good, but it's only good for the time.
Yeah, because
like
I feel like I feel like nowadays when we talk about nuclear stuff, I think most people in America would agree. Yeah, nukes are definitely bad. We got to make sure we don't.
We will go to war to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we will like make sure no other country tries to make nukes in fear that they might like nuke places because I think a lot of Americans know that dropping those nukes not great.
not the best.
Yeah, those nukes aren't fun, and essentially especially I think that because of the Cold War and stuff, sort of the mutually assured destruction kind of thing, where it's like, oh, if the U.S. and the Soviet Union went to war, we're all gonna die because nukes are the first thing to go, right? So I think.
So in a way, you're saying that while it's still a good film, its message has not aged well.
Yeah, like it's very it's very sort of a product of the time, and I think in the original Godzilla, the original Japanese one, I think has sort of that message that continues to be resonant even to the day. So
I'm pretty okay with having an 8 then. Yeah, because like, man, that's just the most interesting discussion I've ever had about the original 2 Godzilla films. Because like let's face it, they are a product of their time. Just one feels more resonant than the other because of what the message is. And you're right, you know, the Americanized one sort of washes down that the idea. Still a good film, but it's, you know, nowadays it just didn't age well. I mean, I'll still watch it though.
Yeah, I mean, I would watch it on just a random afternoon just to watch like random monster destruction. Although at the same time, I could easily do that with like any other Godzilla film that I kind of like more. But yeah,
Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah versus Mothra.
Yeah, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack will continue to be my favorite Godzilla movie.
Godzilla vs. Destroyer.
I mean, yeah, no, like I said, I think all the Haitian movies are good. I just always like that one the best. Just because in that movie it does an interesting thing about Godzilla, as I was saying, because in that movie Godzilla is he's sort of the
embodiment.
Yeah, he's the embodiment of all the people that Japan killed in World War II. So, because that's always sort of kind of a neat, interesting idea. It's like, because I think rarely does Japan ever sort of talk about their war crimes in World War II. So it's kind of like an interesting way to talk about it. Because I'm pretty sure most, like at least, I don't know, I'm pretty positive a lot of Japanese, like at least government officials, don't really like talk about it. I don't know. I
mean, if we're going in there, we also got to talk about some other. I know Gundam, the big Gundam fan that I am, plays up the imperialist side as the bad guys a lot.
I mean, yeah, no, that's definitely. Yeah, I think through culturally, Japan sort of discusses its history in various different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just that, like, I think in the real world circumstances, I think not a lot of Japanese people are like,
they're not willing to talk about it.
yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the Godzilla Mothra King Ghidorah one is probably the most interesting one, because, like, it's all about, the past and how we got to, because wasn't that one, like, Godzilla was the reanimated corpse of the one that died?
Yeah, in the original, and, like, for whatever reason, like, fucking King Ghidorah is in this version is a, like a protector spirit, along with Mothra and like fucking Baragon.
Even though that one gets wrecked immediately in the first 10-15 minutes of the film.
He gets killed off so fast they don't even like bother to put him in the title.
Oh, no, don't forget they mentioned the 90s Godzilla movie.
The first Godzilla movie, 1998, where it's like, so Americans thought that was Godzilla, but our guys say it's not. Which is, like, pretty meta.
Yeah, because no one liked that one.
Yeah, nobody liked that one.
In terms of a Godzilla film, it was not that great.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure I feel like I remember a YouTube video that would mention that, like, if you were to just rename this as if you were to just, like, rename it as just something else, then it probably would have been, like, just a solid... just regular giant monster movie, but the fact that it has the Godzilla name and you're expecting Godzilla things from that movie and it just doesn't deliver, it's sort of just like, this is just a big disappointment.
Plus, I would say like it misses kind of the metaphor of like the nuclear destruction.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's apparently in that film, Godzilla's is a mutated iguana.
Yeah. He's a mutated iguana due to nuclear testing on like some Pacific islands. Which is like probably the only link to the original allegory of Godzilla, because that movie doesn't talk about the consequences of nuclear testing at all. It just sort of it just uses it as a setup for why there's a giant monster attacking New York.
And like I said earlier, I think even now America has come to the West has sort of come to know, what the original one meant. Which is why we get the legendary picture ones as they are. Yeah. Where it's like... Because in that one, the nuclear testing woke up Godzilla. He's this sort of ancient monster that lived on the Earth. And sort of... Kind of... Wasn't like... kind of was a bit of the protector. But also like, this sort of level of radiation and aftermath and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And... I mean, I still love that movie.
Yeah, it's solid.
Solid movie. I say great, but whatever. But no, that's I think that's about all we can say so far, unless there's more you want to talk about.
No, sorry. And I think we've hit I think we've talked about a lot of the big points about the original 1954 Godzilla film and the American version. So yeah, I think we talked about all that needs to be said about those two versions of the movie.
It's amazing how much Godzilla itself has stand the test of time.
Yeah, it is sort of like interesting to see just how prevalent Godzilla is, especially considering he's a foreign. He's not like an American design or whatever. Like I feel like not even King Kong. Well, I mean, I think King Kong's like he's definitely recognizable, but you don't like see like King Kong have like more than like 30 movies about him. Just a couple dozen like remakes.
don't get me wrong. There's some people have stated allegories that movie has had, with race relations and all that kind of stuff. And not saying that's not a prevalent thing nowadays. Is I think it just the message wasn't really there for it at the time.
Yeah, I would imagine that like that's more of like reading the sort of like contextual, like reading the text and sort of seeing these underlying things that like aren't necessarily like author intent. at least what we were discussing with King Kong, with Godzilla, the original, there's clear like authorial intent of like, hey, this is what this movie is about: nuclear bombs and the consequences of mishandling them and testing them. All right? We need to get this shit sorted out, or else we'll all die.
Yeah, I think that's honestly the best way to end this episode. Because I mean, if we had a whole time to talk about Godzilla movies, I think we'd be here for too damn long.
Right, and I do not feel like having our first ever 3-hour podcast just talking about Godzilla nonstop.
I'm pretty sure it won't be 3 hours.
Okay then,
because we got to go through the Showa,
right?
Then we got to go through the Haitian, and then we got to go through the I say Haitian or Haitian? It's Haitian. Then we got to go to the Millennium and the recent ones. We got to talk about the Legendary, and then we got to talk about the 98 movie, and we won't talk about the cartoons.
Which cartoons? Because there's multiple, right? There's the Hanna-Barbera one.
Yeah.
I think there's the cartoon based off the 1998 movie,
which was a lot better than the actual movie.
Yeah, and there's the anime movies.
Then there's there's that other anime movie that's coming out.
Like, Godzilla just continues to be prevalent to this day.
Somehow.
Yeah, somehow.
Because you would think over like 30 different movies, you kind of beat the horse already.
No, people would love seeing a giant dinosaur monster that breathes atomic fire beating up other giant monsters.
You are not wrong.
Not wrong.
I mean, there's a reason why a lot of people like the recent King of the Monsters movie than the critics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I said the story made no sense, but the goddamn action was amazing.
I mean, yeah, I kind of figured if we were getting a sequel that it was gonna go full like actual just a regular Godzilla movie, but with like an actual budget.
Yeah. So thanks guys for taking a listen to us. If you can find us on any social media site. Oh, sorry, that's my phone. You can find us on any social media sites like that, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And if you go on Instagram, there's a link tree to where you can find all of our podcasting episodes. So that can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Castbox, Pandora, Spotify, all the you can find them there. If you give us a listen to and give us a rating there. And if you can find us on YouTube, you can at the Geek Centurions, where you can, see our ugly mugs. You can see us, and see the face, see the voice. And when you're there, hit the comments, like, subscribe, bell icon. You know how it is with YouTube. Give us a follow there, and we want to do some more stuff, but we kind of need the cash. We do have a Patreon account at the Geek Centurions where you can, give us some fresh dough so that we can do more stuff, and you'll get some exclusive contents out of it. It's probably the best way for you to see how we do.
Yeah, definitely support us in any way you can.
Any way you can, whether it be big or small, we will happily accept. And yeah, I think that's about it. That's the end of the episode. Godzilla's awesome.
I mean, yeah, that's yeah. I'm actually very surprised how long we've gone just on this one movie. But yeah, no, Godzilla is I don't know. I feel like Godzilla will continues to stick around long after we're dead.
My kids are gonna be talking about Godzilla.
Probably.
They're kids.
Yeah.
So long as there are issues of nuclear war, I'm pretty sure we'll have some. There'll be some Godzilla.
Yeah.
So, guys, thanks for taking the chance to listen to. Hope you guys are staying good. And once again, hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. You guys are doing great. It's been your boy Eli.
It's me, Joe.
And we are the Geek Centurions. You guys have a good one. Peace.